There are obviously conversations ongoing right now with the U.S. administration, but as I've said a number of times, we will not be backing down from our response tariffs until such a time as the unjustified American tariffs on Canadian goods.
The Wall Street Journal dubbed it the stupidest trade war in history. And that is exactly what Donald Trump's tariffs have caused. Not only raising prices dramatically causing his popularity to plummet, but Donald Trump himself is realizing how unpopular and stupid this plan is. And so he's trying to get his way out of it. But leaders around the world are not letting him. Like Justin Trudeau, who went public with how he will be responding to Donald Trump's tariffs, also leaking a bit of the conversation on a private phone call between them, showing how scared Donald Trump is. And Trump, as you can expect, is furious. We are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into Justin Trudeau's response, I first, unfortunately, want to hear from Carolyn Levitt, who is talking about their conversation right here.
And the president just posted on social media that he had spoken with Prime Minister Trudeau. He says he's not satisfied with what the Prime Minister has said when it comes to fentanyl, but less than 1%, as you know, less than 1% of the fentanyl seized last year was in the northern border. What else does Canada need to do?
Well, the president did just put out a statement on his call with the governor, Justin Trudeau, as he calls him, of Canada, and he said that he was not pleased, as you said. He said it's not good enough. He told Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that directly. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner, as the president said, but he's not going to stop standing up for the American people. And to answer your question directly, when it comes to fentanyl, for the last 4 years, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north and the south, Canada and Mexico, respectively, have allowed America to be a dumping ground, not just for illegal aliens, but for illegal, poisonous, deadly fentanyl, which is now the #1 killer of young people in this country aged 18 to 34. Through the northern border in Canada, in last fiscal year alone, there was enough fentanyl seized to kill 4.8 billion people. And that number is up 2,050% from 2023, the year before. So there's been more than a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl seizure at the northern border. Why? Because Canada is allowing that fentanyl to come to the United States. The president sees these numbers. He thinks about the lives that are lost. And everybody in this room, I'm sure, everybody watching at home, everybody across the country knows someone in our lives who has been killed at the hands of this deadly poison. There needs to be repercussions for that. The president feels very strongly about it.
Respectfully, it's just 43 pounds that were found last year. That's less than a carry-on suitcase. Is that a lot of fentanyl compared to, say, Mexico, where the vast majority of the fentanyl is brought in through Mexico, not Canada? So what else does Canada need to do?
Well, I just told you, last year alone, there was a 2,000% increase in illegal fentanyl. You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe. And frankly, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the families in this country who have lost loved ones at the hands of this deadly poison. If you talk to them, and this president has, they are grateful that they finally have a president who is standing up to both Canada and Mexico, and most importantly, to China as well. The president added an additional 10% tariff on China because this deadly poison is being produced in that country. It's being distributed through our neighbors, and there needs to be consequences for that, period.
So Trump is still trying to position himself as this big, strong, tough guy because he knows the walls are kind of closing in around him. He knows all of his plans are crumbling. His immigration plan, thank God, is falling apart. His tariffs are the stupidest thing maybe any president has done in history. And Elon Musk is causing him to somehow be even more unpopular than we thought was possible. So he's trying to fix all all of those things in one fell swoop, and it's really not working. Especially because Justin Trudeau is not letting him pull back, which is what he tried to do, trying to decide that we bring back some of those tariffs on Mexico, on Canada. Maybe we don't want this trade war. Well, here's Justin Trudeau's response to that.
I'd like to hear more about that phone call with the president yesterday. I wonder if you can describe the tone, the tenor, the scope. I understand some profanity emerged in that call. Maybe you can explain the context in which that happened. Can you give us some color on that phone?
I can confirm that it was a colorful call. And it was also a very substantive call. We talked about a range of issues. Of course, primarily the trade war that they have chosen to unjustly launch on Canada. But there is also a recognition that our two countries are deeply interwoven, not just in our economy, but in our people-to-people ties and our history. And we should be able to continue to do big things together as we have over many years in the past, first and foremost by negotiating and signing an extraordinarily successful USMCA CUSMA deal. But that there's more to do, and we committed to continue to work together constructively.
Certainly someone on the other side thought it important enough to note that profanity, that it was a heated exchange, to tell a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. And we're in the business, we know these things don't get out there by accident. There was a purpose, I assume, that the American side had. So can we get a sense of where did it become heated? Is it he doesn't accept the facts of the case? Tell us what's going on here.
I'm not going to get into it in details, but there were different sections of the conversation in which different approaches and tones. But I've been having conversations and working with Donald for over 8 years now, and a lot of it is rolling with it. A lot of it is figuring out how to move forward constructively despite certain unpredictabilities that often come in, and remembering to stay steady no matter what. And that is the approach I've always taken. A firmness around standing up for Canadians, but an understanding that we can and should be working together to create benefits on both sides of the border, because that's how we benefit the most.
If Donald Trump thought other countries were just going to bend the knee and allow him to act like this big fake tough guy, yeah, he was wrong. And we expected this. Other countries are responding. They will not just be walked all over. Justin Trudeau is going to push back. And what's so great about the Canadian response is that they're doing it in a very targeted way, going after red states, making sure that the trade war hits them hardest. And one of the best examples of that can be seen in the Liberal Party of Canada's Prime Minister candidate, who has a very special and specific way that she's going to get the White House to stop their trade war. You'll just have to take a listen to what she had to say.
As Canada's finance minister and deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau, she's now a candidate for prime minister herself. It is great to see you. You could be, which is pretty incredible to say out loud, you could be the prime minister this time next week. Tariffs, of course, are going to be a major issue. You've suggested Canada should fight back in a very targeted way. You've been very forward about that. You've pushed to target Wisconsin dairy farmers, Michigan manufacturers, Florida oranges, to name a few, as a way of really specifically hitting states that are politically key to Donald Trump. You know what gets to his heart there. How far, for people who are watching, are you ready to go on tariffs? They're gonna be put into place in a couple of hours. How far are you ready to go? And what other targets would you want to aim for?
Well, it is great to be with you, Jen, and I am running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, because right now we Canadians have to stand up and fight for our country. If the tariffs are imposed, as Prime Minister, I will fight back with dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs, and our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest trade war in history. An example of a measure that I will put in place as Prime Minister is 100% tariffs on Teslas. I think that should get some attention in the White House. And, Jen, I think Americans, I don't think you think about Canada all that much. But I think when you do think about Canada, you might think, oh, they're smaller than us. Is this really something I should be worried about? Well, the stock market is worried. Shares have gone down, and this has been a terrible year for U.S. stocks already because of these tariff threats. And the reality is, you guys need us. We are your largest market by far. The U.S. sells more to Canada than to China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. So we do have leverage. And as Prime Minister, I will use it. And not because I want to. I mean, the irony about this, the stupidity about this is right now we have a balanced and mutually beneficial relationship. There is a win-win here. There is an exit ramp. But Americans need to know that if you hit Canada, we will hit back, and we will be sure that our retaliation hurts.
I think Americans are very concerned right now about these tariffs that are about to go into place and could impact their bottom line and their cost of goods. Let me ask you, as you just mentioned Elon Musk, I think everybody in this country is learning a lot about his influence, which is unwieldy and over the top, just to say a few words. You mentioned 100% tariffs on Teslas to hit Elon Musk. He owns a number of other companies. Obviously, there's Starlink. Would you ever consider canceling Canada's contracts with Starlink, for example?
Absolutely. And Canadian premiers have already said that they would do that. I think you made a really important point a minute ago, Jen, which is right now, this is maybe abstract for Americans. But if these tariffs are put in place, it is going to hurt Americans. Anyone who has a 401k is going to be hit because the stock market is already hurting. Anyone who needs to fill their car up with gas is going to be hit. You are going to be putting tariffs, a tax on the oil and gas and electricity that we sell you. Totally absurd. Your grocery prices are going to go up because you know what you need to grow food in the United States? You need fertilizer. And 80% of it comes from Canada, and you're going to put a 25% tax on it? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is right. This is dumb. This is utterly self-mutilating, and our retaliation is going to make it worse because we can't stand for these attacks on our economy. So really what I'm saying to you and to your viewers, Jen, is call the White House now. Say to the president, say to your congressmen, say to your senators, say to your governors, this is self-mutilation. This just doesn't make sense. There is no need to do this. But if you follow this path, it's going to hurt America.
It's not every day when you hear a candidate to be the leader of a neighboring country call for people to call the White House and their members of Congress. So that speaks to the significance of the moment. I wanted to turn to Ukraine because I think when I first met you, you were a very well-respected journalist. You spent a lot of time in Ukraine. You covered Russia. This is obviously something I think we're all trying to figure out what's happening and why right now. There are a lot of theories as to why Trump is siding with Putin and badgering Zelensky, to put it one way. Why do you think he is?
Well, I would like to start, Jen, by just being very clear about what we are seeing. And I think it's important to say the scenes that we saw in the Oval Office on Friday were shameful. They were appalling. We saw a U.S. president parroting Kremlin talking points. And I want to be very clear for the record that Putin is a dictator. His invasion of Ukraine is criminal and illegal. Zelensky is the democratically elected president of Ukraine, and Ukrainians are bravely fighting for their democracy and their sovereignty. And by the way, they're doing it alone. We should be grateful to them for fighting for democracy and the rules-based international order, and Canadians certainly are.
100% tariffs on Tesla. That's beautiful. I think that's a great plan. That'll get him to pay attention. You have to target the real president to get the fake president to pay attention. Elon's upset. We know Donald Trump is going to act. And of course, like I said, this is the most unpopular action this administration possibly could have put forth. And so it's our job to call it out. We're certainly going to be on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.